You've probably heard this term thrown around a lot, especially in conversations about politics or international development. Good governance. But what does it actually mean? Well, today we're going to break it down.
So, let's just start with the big question right off the bat. What really makes a government good at its job? What's the difference between one that's fair and effective and one that, well, isn't? It's a huge question, but this concept of good governance gives us a fantastic framework to start finding some answers.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get on the same page about what governance even is. Then we'll see what happens when you add that tricky word good to the mix. After that, we'll dive deep into the 8 principles that really define it. And finally, we'll talk about why this whole idea is so important.
All right, first things first. Before we can talk about what makes governance good, we need a solid handle on what governance itself is. Let's start there.
When you boil it all down, governance is really about 2 key things. 1, how decisions get made, and 2, how those decisions are actually put into practice, or sometimes how they fail to be implemented. And you know, this applies to pretty much everything, not just countries. It could be your local city council, a big corporation, you name it. Okay, so this is where things start to get really interesting. Once you add the word good, the definition gets a lot more complex. In fact, some of the world's biggest institutions have their own unique takes on what it really means.
For instance, if we go back to 1992, the World Bank looked at it through a very particular lens. For them, it was all about how power is used to manage a country's money and social resources with the specific goal of development. Now, the UN paints with a much broader brush. They see it as using authority, both political and administrative, from the very top all the way down to the local level, to manage, well, all of a country's affairs. And then you've got the IMF, which takes it even a step further. Their definition is super broad, covering pretty much the whole shebang: economic policies, the rules and regulations, and even whether a country actually follows its own laws. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it's pretty clear there's no single, one-size-fits-all definition that everyone agrees on. What good governance means really truly depends on who's talking, the situation they're in, and what they're trying to achieve.
If you're new here, this is basically a quick introduction to what this channel is all about.
Right. We dive into public administration quite a bit. That's the foundational stuff.
Yeah.
And if this sounds like your kind of thing, if you want to explore these topics more with us, well, hitting subscribe is probably a good idea.
Definitely. Yeah. Click that subscribe button. We've got plenty more planned.
And maybe give this video a like. It helps other people who are interested in this stuff find the channel.
Please do. It makes a difference.
So with all these different definitions floating around, how do we get a practical handle on this concept? Well, to cut through all that complexity, a lot of experts, especially at the UN, have developed a framework of core principles, the things that any good government should probably have. And that framework comes down to a magic number 8. The United Nations has identified 8 major characteristics that, when you bring them all together, really form the bedrock of good governance. You can think of them as the essential building blocks.
All right, let's dive in and take a closer look at each one of these principles, starting with one that is absolutely fundamental to any free society.
First up, participation. This one is a huge deal. It's the idea that every single citizen, not just a powerful few, should have a voice in making decisions. This can happen directly or through representatives they choose. But, and this is key, for participation to actually mean something, you need things like freedom of speech and the ability for people to organize and be well informed.
Next, we have the rule of law. This is so critical. It means having fair laws on the books, and just as important, making sure those laws are applied impartially to everyone, no exceptions. This also means protecting the human rights of all citizens, especially vulnerable minorities. And to make it all work, you absolutely need judges who are independent and a police force that's trustworthy.
Okay, number 3 is transparency. This is all about shining a light on what the government is doing. It means decisions are made based on clear, established rules, and that information about those decisions is easy for the public to find, access, and actually understand. And then there's responsiveness. This one's all about action. It's the idea that government institutions should exist to serve the people, not the other way around. It means they try to respond to everybody's needs and concerns, and they do it in a reasonable amount of time.
You know, any society is made up of tons of different, often competing interests, right? Well, good governance tries to be the mediator.
It works to find some common ground, a broad agreement on what's best for the community as a whole, while always keeping an eye on the long-term goal of sustainable development.
And that idea of bringing people together flows right into our next principle, equity and inclusiveness. A society is at its best when everyone feels like they have a stake in it, like they belong. This means making sure no one gets left out and that the most vulnerable people have real opportunities to make their lives better.
Number 7 is effectiveness and efficiency. Look, it's not enough for a government to just do things, it has to do them well. This means its actions actually produce results that meet people's needs, and it does so without wasting time or money. This also extends to using natural resources wisely to protect our planet for future generations.
And finally, we have accountability. You can think of this as the principle that holds everything else together. It means that the people in power are answerable to the public for what they do. And if you think about it, accountability can't really exist without the other principles, right? You need transparency and the rule of law to make it work.
Okay, so we've just walked through all 8 of these big, important principles. But so what? Why does striving for this ideal of good governance actually matter in the real world?
Well, here's the bottom line. When a country really tries to put these principles into practice, you see real, tangible results. Corruption goes down because of accountability and transparency. The opinions of minority groups and the most vulnerable people in society are actually listened to. And ultimately, you get a government that's better at responding to what people need, both today and tomorrow.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Is it actually possible to achieve perfect good governance, hitting all 8 of these marks all the time? Or is it more of a permanent ideal, a North Star that we must always keep striving for? Maybe it's the constant effort, the pursuit of that ideal, that really pushes us forward and helps us build better, fairer societies for everyone.
If you're new here, this is basically a quick introduction to what this channel is all about.
Right. We dive into public administration quite a bit. That's the foundational stuff.
Yeah, the principles behind how governments are set up, how they should ideally operate. It's more than just rules, it's the thinking behind it.
So our goal here is just to shed some light on it, unpack the complexities, why it matters.
And maybe ask some interesting questions along the way, like how do you keep such a huge system accountable? That's something we'll definitely explore more.
Right. And if this sounds like your kind of thing, if you want to explore these topics more with us, well, hitting subscribe is probably a good idea.
Definitely. Yeah, click that subscribe button. We've got plenty more planned.
And maybe give this video a like. It helps other people who are interested in this stuff find the channel.
Please do. It makes a difference.
Definitely. You can find us on social media. Just search for ConsultKano. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, drop a comment below. But until then, do check out some of the other videos.
Lots to explore. Thanks again.
Kanano Consultants.